The way we think of a typical smartphone today is changing. More screen size, more uses, precise engineering, and more power is proving that foldables are the future. So starting off with the Flip 5, we have got to talk about this epic new cover display, or what Samsung is calling the Flex window. Because as you can see, it is much bigger than previous models, and that means bigger features. So widgets now show a lot more info instead of small snapshots, and they are so much more convenient to use with this larger screen. So setting a timer or recording a voice note takes seconds, and you will also be able to download and use third-party widgets. I also love that you can change and customize the cover screen with animated wallpapers. At first there are a couple different ones to choose from, but if you open the phone, you will have more customization options. But what's really awesome about this cover screen is you'll actually be able to receive messages and WhatsApps and respond to them all from the cover screen. Not only that, you'll also be able to watch YouTube and Netflix on it, which is really cool. So there is a lot you can do with the new cover screen, and I am so pumped to show you guys all the tips and tricks, so make sure you sub to see that. But aside from the cool customization and loads of widgets, there are of course the cameras on the cover screen too. And I was really surprised and actually disappointed to see that there were hardly any upgrades to them. So we still have the 12 megapixel wide and 12 megapixel ultra wide cameras. However, now, because of the new larger cover screen, it's probably one of the best phones to take videos, selfies, or even group pictures with because of how easily you can see what's going on. And I can see this being a feature that once you start using, you'll never want to stop using. And why wouldn't this be the future of all smartphones when you're using the main cameras to get the best quality? Like, these are just some quick shots I got that were so easy to snap. Again, I especially like how many settings you can adjust right on the cover screen because you can switch through modes, apply different filters. There's also a drop-down menu where you can change the aspect ratio to get a square pic or longer body shot, change the timer, really a whole bunch of different settings. So for someone who enjoys taking pictures, this really is hard not to love. And honestly, it's easy to feel like standard smartphones without this cover screen feature feel old. Now, something else new to the Flip is it fully closes flush without any gaps. It is a seemingly small adjustment, but makes a big difference in the way that it feels. And so much so, it's actually one of the thinnest foldables in the world right now. This was a much needed change, and now it does just feel more compact, more polished, it's easy to hold, and I really do like it. But sadly, it made almost no difference when it comes to the crease, which is a big factor for a lot of people when they're thinking about getting a flip phone. So if Samsung want to keep paving the way for future foldables, they gotta get that crease ironed out. But another important factor is the battery, and although the battery is the same size as last year, it will be improved because of the new chip. It has the most powerful chip for Android, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chip, which is the same as the S23 Ultra and is more than enough power and performance for this bad boy. It has super fast charging, fast wireless charging, and reverse power share. The fingerprint sensor is still on the side, but I'm not gonna lie, if they added an under-display fingerprint sensor to the main display, that would be really cool. It comes in 4 main different pastel shades, but when you think about it, the colors don't seem to matter as much with this design, because you only really have color on a small portion of the phone, and the whole front is essentially a glossy black panel, but it does still look good. Samsung's also going to be releasing a really interesting cover with inserts. So every time you place a new insert in the case, it'll automatically change the cover screen wallpaper to match the case. I am a huge fan of this phone, and an even bigger fan of the larger cover display. There's something about having an almost fully functioning square-like phone that's novel and exciting. I love that you can do so much on it. It feels convenient, it feels useful, portable, and like you can really get the best of both worlds now. I am so glad this phone style is becoming more popular, and enough so that I think in future every major phone brand is going to have a model or something similar to this. I do think it's worth the upgrade from previous models only if you get a ton of use from that cover display, but not a great idea if you are hoping for better cameras because, as you now know, hardly anything has changed there. But now let's flip over to the Fold 5. Straight off the bat, the Fold 5 looks and feels a lot like last year's Fold 4, other than one minor subtle difference where the flashlight has moved to the right-hand side of the cameras. But there are some noticeable differences too, and the biggest one is that it now has a gapless close, leaving no space between the glass when it's folded, which in comparison is a safer design for the screen because it's so much harder to get dust and debris in there. And this design does also make it thinner overall by 2.4 millimeters when folded. Samsung also mentioned that Fold users, aside from wanting it thinner, also wanted it to weigh less, so it is now 10 grams lighter. The second biggest difference is the display, and I'm not talking about the crease, which as you can see is still there and could also do with some smoothing out, but I'm talking about the brightness. The Fold 5 is now much brighter than last year's model at 1750 nits, which happens to be the same as the S23 Ultra. And that basically means you can see this phone easily in the brightest conditions. Whether this ends up affecting the battery much, time will tell, because this is the same size battery as last year, but hopefully we do get to see more battery life because it too has that super powerful Snapdragon chip. After all, this is supposed to be the ultimate productivity machine, so having a super fast chip that can handle a lot is good to see. So multiple windows or split screens can easily be handled and is so smooth. I did not see any major updates in terms of customization or wallpapers, but again, make sure you sub so you don't miss my video on some sweet tips and tricks. Something else the chip makes very snappy and very responsive is the S Pen, which is another major reason people like the Fold. But what I was hoping to see was that you could draw on the front screen, but sadly you cannot, and that really would have been cool. But now one of my biggest pet peeves about the Fold 5 has got to be the cameras. They are literally the same as the Fold 4, and you might think Fold users don't really care about the cameras, but they do, and when you pay as much as you do for a flagship Fold, you want the best. So because the cameras are the same, it kind of feels like Samsung just renamed last year's model to Fold 5. And it would have been amazing if they had have put the S23 Ultra's camera system on this puppy. Which is another reason why I say foldables are the future. Because I would not be surprised to see the top tier specs of future smartphones all on foldables like the Z Fold. Then it does come in cream, ice blue and phantom black. I actually really like the color options this year, but now let's chat about the price. The Flip 5 is going to be £1,049 for the base model, which is actually £10 cheaper than last year's Flip. And the Fold 5 is going to start at £1,749, which is £100 more expensive than the Fold 4 released at. Which is not a massive increase, but an increase nonetheless. However, with either of these, you would be getting one of Samsung's top tier flagship smartphones, packed with a really powerful chip, slick design and a ton of features that no doubt more and more people are starting to love. And look, while I do wish Samsung had have done more with their cameras and their batteries, these are still incredible phones and I do think that foldables are the future. Especially when you see so many smartphone brands that are launching their own version of a flip and fold device and people are eagerly awaiting to see what comes out. I think people don't necessarily want a new physical design, they actually just want more screen space, and foldables do exactly that, and they do it really well. I really do think that anyone with either one of these phones would love them. But hopefully Samsung keep innovating and keeping their phones fresh because competition is on the rise, and if Samsung don't make big enough changes, people might look elsewhere. As mentioned, make sure you subscribe to see my tips and tricks videos on both the Flip and Fold 5, and let me know what colors I should get. But I'll see you guys in the next one. Toodles!